the Longbangers Hibs Thursday night 4-in in association with Leeds Spirits at Matty, and it has been a hell of a busy week at Easter Road since we last spoke. So I suppose there's no point standing on ceremony and fanning about. We might as well get straight into it. So Charlie, I'm going to come to you first. Where do you want to start?
Um, I think it's been one of those weeks that feels like it's a fever dream, and I'm ready to wake up and it'd be Saturday morning, and I'm out to go to Easter Road to go and watch us win against St Mirren. But obviously, that was not the case. I think that was comfortably our worst performance of the season, and the alarm bells were ringing for me. After, like as soon as the game kicked off, I knew we weren't going to win.
Mm-hmm.
St Mirren were all over us like a rash. And then for then on in, like the week's just got worse and worse. Obviously, the rumours that David Gray was sacked. Obviously, the statement on Monday of fully supporting him, which I'm not entirely convinced it is a full supportive statement. I think it's a case of you've got X number of games and then you're binned, like we seen with Monty,
Mm-hmm.
and then obviously I was whatever's happened since then. So it's been one of those weeks that just is an embarrassment to the club yet again.
It was, as they say, a shocker. Let's start, I suppose, then with the game. What do you think was behind such an abject performance, Charlie?
I don't know. I just think the players didn't look up for it. Um, it took Rocky and Levitt on and Nicky Cadden for us to get going. And I know there's been a lot of chat for people wanting Levitt to start, and I don't think he'd done any his chances any harm on Saturday. I think he looked to drive us forward, but I just we weren't making passes. We weren't. It took us. I don't know how long it took us to get our first shot on target. Like it was just one of those games that we just didn't look up for the fight. And St Mirren, we know what they're like. They're a well coached team. They're not a very good team to watch, but they're industrious and they know every man on the park knows their job and they done it to perfection. And it was just one of those. And that was my first game at Easter Road this season, and probably going to be one of my last because I'm not paying 20 odd quid to go and watch that. So that was just very depressing.
What do you think it said about where we're at the now? So like I think we talked about it on Sunday. The noise in the papers leading into the game. You had Martin Boyle and Joe Newell talking about how they've not done enough for Dave. Um, Boss said he'd run through walls for the gaffer, and Joe Newell saying about the players letting him down. When we then go and have a like, in particular that first half performance. uh, How do you view that? How do you view when you got words saying one things and actions saying something different?
I think it's about time the players shut up. Like really, like do your talking on the pitch. I'm sick of them saying in the week, oh, we'll like Martin Boyle will run through a brick wall for the gaffer, but can he beat his man on the pitch? Like, and that let's not talk about that penalty as well. It's just I really don't like the fact that the players are and like Nicky Cadden after the game saying the players were hurting. Aye, that's all fine and well, but you're not showing it on the pitch. Like you're not given. I don't think anyway. For the games I've watched this season, they're given nearly 100% for the badge, and that I think that's the most worrying thing.
Mm. Jack, I'll bring you in. What did you make of it on Saturday?
It's really disappointing. I mean, it's the same story. I mean, conceding two goals in the first half. It's not really good, is it? You don't want to be going to Easter Road to see that.
No, what do you put it down to? Was it bad tactics? Is it the
Well,
players' fault? Is it a
watching, well,
combination?
the fault of the second goal, Warren O'Hara, I mean, what's he doing? I mean, that was horrendously bad. I've never seen anything like it, but could have done better, headed it out to the side, but no,
And did you take any comfort for like a slightly improved second half, Jack?
no,
Not at all.
no. I just, well, me and my dad left on the 80th minute because we had seen enough. We were just like, it's time to go. And that was it. But nothing exciting in the second half apart from watching the highlights, the Nicky Cadden goal. But why the second one was chopped off is beyond me.
Well, I would say the second one was quite obvious offside, wasn't it? I mean,
Aye,
it's come off a Gale who's standing in front of the keeper, but
aye.
2.5 miles offside. So
Yeah.
it was a wee bit unfortunate that it happened. So I don't know if it would have been
Aye.
allowed if it had gone straight in, but
Aye.
I suspect it might, even if it hadn't hit him, I suspect it might have been chopped off because he was standing in front of the goalie.
Aye.
But I think it
Yeah.
would have been harsher on St Mirren if we'd taken anything for that game anyway. Like we'd have taken it, but
Yeah.
what about this the statement on Monday, Jack? What did you make of that?
It's not really making the fans feel a bit better, is it? I mean, people want the board out, people want the Gordons gone, but nothing's really happening there, is there? There's the same errors still sitting in the club.
What were you, Shay? Did you make it to the game on Saturday?
Yeah, I did. I think that was all the games I've been to this season. I think that's the first time that I would say we've been the worst team, or there's been one standout team anyway.
Yeah.
Well, or at least since the two Celtic games at the start of the season. I can't think of anything attacking wise we actually done except for when Johan hit the post and the two penalties.
Yeah.
I thought we had a bit more energy in the midfield when Levitt came on, and when Rocky came on, I thought we were slightly better. But other than that, I don't think we were actually that great. I think, to put it bluntly, I thought we were shite. But St Mirren looked great, and I hate saying it because it's against my team, but I thought they actually looked somewhat right.
I thought they would look, considering the troubles that they've had in the run up to the game. I thought they looked very well drilled.
Yeah.
And right up for the game. Certainly looked more motivated than we did. Tracy, you got your hand up when you come.
Yeah, just a couple of points. Firstly, obviously the statement, it was from the board again. We're either getting the board or the Gordon family. That's all we've had in statements pretty much this year. Who's leading the club? Because nobody's taking accountability or responsibility for anything. And I know we all want everybody to kind of be together and the rest of it, but that tells us nothing. Yeah, okay, the board are supporting them, but it just rings true from what was said in the last statement when Nick Montgomery was here. It's just, I feel anybody could have written that statement. It was pretty poor. There's no passion behind it, and really anybody that I feel on that board that's actually giving me vibes that they actually care about the club and what's happening to it. And then the other point was just really kind of like on the players. Obviously, I haven't even watched the highlights of the game because everybody kept saying it was like the worst performance, and I thought, can't put myself through it. But I don't believe the players don't care. Obviously, I've been in a privileged position where I've been able to work beside players, and you see them after a defeat, and it's not a nice place, like it's not a nice environment, and you feel it. You do feel them hurting. Yeah, they've got to speak before games and after games, which I'm sure they probably wish they didn't have to. I'm sure Dave wishes he didn't have to speak after games, because people keep saying he keeps trunging out the same stuff. Well, there's not really much he can do, but he's got an obligation and he has to do it. So yeah, I don't think that they don't not care. I feel there's a bit of a fear when they set foot on the pitch, especially at Easter Road. There's this fear that if they make a mistake, everybody's going to be on their back. And I think they've got that in their head. And I think then it's psychological, then it's harder to try and fix.
Were you surprised, Tracy, with the statement that it was, it sort of fell where it did, and that the club said we're supporting Dave and his coaching team rather than it being like the curtains for him? Because depending on who you listen to at various stages in the day, it seemed that it was a sort of fait accompli that the sack was imminent. And then the statement came out, and I think some folk were quite surprised that it was a unanimous backing for him. But how did you feel about it?
I'm glad there's a backing for him, because I don't want him to get sacked. I think they've really hung him out to dry on a few occasions. So it would be pretty poor on their end as well that if they did sack him. So I'm glad that they are backing him, and I'm glad that they're backing his coaching staff as well. Whether people like him or not, he's here. we'll have to get behind them, because unless we start, fully backing, like getting behind the team and pushing them for the first to the 90th minute or however long the game goes on for, I don't know how we get out this rut, and I think we are having to put it on the supporters to kind of push the team. Everybody turns up in their numbers, but yeah, it's actually having to support them and push them at the games. And there's too much abuse. I spoke to a friend and they were saying that Ellie was getting abuse while he was warming up at a game a couple of weeks ago. And he turned around and told the guy to shut it, got punched for telling him to shut it as well. So it's just like, if a player's warming up and they're getting abuse, you know what I mean? Sometimes our support is very toxic.
Aye. Dave, you've got your hand up. I'll bring you in just now, just on the back of Chase's point there.
I think that performance at the weekend just sort of encapsulated everything that's wrong with our club, from top to bottom, and even the messaging that's followed that performance for the club just shows how weak we are for the top down. And I think we've got a real problem with the players are not responding to David Gray. They look scared to play Easter Road, whatever reason, but they should have come out that second half like lions. When Rocky came on the pitch, he showed anger and passion and determination. He looked unhappy. The position the team were in the game, within the game, and for me, I think we reward people for being very average or below average. We've this week made Joe Newell a director of the foundation, and again, he's a lovely guy and does a lot of great work. But we're just locking in these players to the club. Dave Marshall was another one. His performances, you go back to when he was playing, weren't good enough, but we've rewarded him. He was a director of the foundation and now he's on the board. People just hang around the club. The club should set the bar much, much higher, that to be in the starting 11, you have to first work hard, and then you have to be a good football player. You have to be brave. You have to execute the plans of the manager. But there's nothing about us, but we're just kind of Groundhog Day. We've said it before, but I genuinely feel we're on the cusp of real change at the club. It'll not continue. And I think they would have loved to have sacked Dave Gray and just went into repeat new manager. I think that's all they know. I don't think they really know how to support people and we know the recruitment's wrong. I think that's about to change. But I genuinely feel there's got to be a change of ownership, or at the very least a change of direction within the football club. But there's just too many at our club that are just not on it. They're making really good money. They're having good careers, and they're not delivering. I want the same expectations that's in any business, that we've got to perform, and you've got to be good at your job to keep your job and to be rewarded with extra contracts and extra money. You've got to earn these things, and right now the team isn't. And I don't think Dave Gray can do anything with this bunch. And I don't think Dave Gray should be sacked. I think he should get to the end of the season at very least. But I think we should bring in half a dozen players, get rid of our loans that are not doing it, get a new goalkeeper, and just set expectations publicly where the bar is. And if you can't meet them, you'll not be in the team. You'll not even be in the squad. You might not even be at the club. And just hardball with a few of these players. Now, we've said that so many are not good enough to be at the club. Well, let's replace them now. Let's not wait. Just let's do it.
There was almost like I think we talked about it on Sunday, like a sense of David Gray taking that approach as well with the substitutions that he made. So you had O'Hara who'd made the mistake for the second goal, got hooked at half time. Kwon and Triantis both got hooked at half time as well as he rang the changes. Boyle, as soon as he missed the penalty, was almost immediately taken off.
But Matty, as Tracy said, our fans are not the kindest bunch, but I'd rather see Rocky in the team, and I'd rather see Josh Campbell in the team, because they'll set the tempo and the tone. They're not the best football players in the world, but to me, they give everything that they've got, and that's more than everybody's doing at the moment in that squad, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Right, we've got a couple of comments on YouTube, but I'll get to, and then John, I'll bring you in next to get your thoughts on the situation. So E2 Lenoxis said, best thing about the break is a week off from being annoyed about Hibs. Gilky Hibs said, agree players have to dig deep to get us out of this, but it's looking increasingly like the players that will be moved on simply have given up. What a shit show. Honestly, this season is about survival. Davy Granules said, good evening, Hibs. Good weekend ahead. No Hibs games to complain about. It's a full Bobby Williamson weekend at the cinema. It says, too many passengers and no drivers at Hibs. Colin said, see when I'm on a Zoom call, I hate it when folk are doing work and not listening to the call. Not saying any names, Ian. And David said, Ian's no working, he's picking his fixed odds. Right, John, Saturday, the statement, where do you want to start? You can pick it up and sort of set the tone wherever you want.
I think the statement is probably a good place, and I think the statement and how it's landed is a year in the making.
Mm-hmm.
If we go back to this time last year, we were all getting that razzle-dazzle. I mean, American billionaires coming in, big investment in the club, HSL, piss off, we're not interested in you, kicked off to the side. We've got this wee cuddly boy who's got 10%. We'll get everything through that we want. Now, I mean, the club really sold hard to everybody. You listen to Ben Kensel's interview from before the AGM. I mean, Hibs fans should be really excited about what's going to happen. So the club built this up big. I mean, we had seen failure under the Gordons' tenure at Easter Road.
Mm-hmm.
We've all seen it before, but they turned around and told us that this was going to be so much better. And by the summer, it had already gone to rats. So in the summer, we're then told we're going to get this big review. Now, I don't think that the review ever stopped. And I think picking up on what sort of Dave there said, I think that Bournemouth, Black Knights, however we want to put it, are taking over the football department.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that we're hearing coming out, the faces that are going in. I think Calvin's lost his job, who's been there probably for about 8 or 10 years. I mean, if he's not performed, then that's why he's moving out. It seems to me that we did a complete reset at the beginning of the summer and put a very rushed and very quick structure in place, bringing Malky Mackay in to stabilise, give a head in there, put staff round about him, put Gray in place. And as you described it from your long bangers towers on Monday night, you had your discussion. Yeah, everything in the summer was really quick and dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Dave's point about we need another goalie. Yeah, the goalies we picked up in the summer haven't turned out to be good enough. They're only the worst goalies we've ever had, but they're not good enough. So there's improvements that have got to be done. But the club are failing. I thought that was an AI-generated statement.
Mm-hmm.
I thought somebody had spoken to their computer and said, we want to speak to the fans without any accountability and tell them we're doing nothing. Right? And that's what it read like. It's so impersonal. And that's what winds everybody up. And you then get to the stage where when an organisation's in a bad place, cracks appear and people whisper and chat.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that there were, I think you were one of them, 3 fairly prominent members of the private board on Hibsnet saying that David Gray was being sacked and the decision changed during the day means that the impression was given to some people within the club that Gray was going. And they felt that they were going to release it out. That's not an organisation that's in a good place. I mean, that's an organisation which has lost trust or expects to lose trust with those in a leadership position. So the club's leaking, and that's reflecting right through. I mean, Saturday was, if you told me we had Michael Nelson playing at left centre back on Saturday, given O'Hara's performance, I wouldn't have challenged anybody. I've stood up for him a lot this season. Saturday was not his day. I mean, and changes. But again, it's a random squad. So you're looking at a club where Malky Mackay's told a lot of players, if your contract's up at the end of the season, we're clearing out. Players will know whether their agents are getting any feedback at all from the club about extending their deals. But the only hope, and I sort of grasp a little bit onto what Dave was saying, I think that the only way out for the club is that Black Knights come over and take over the football department I just think they're trying to do it in a way that doesn't slap Ian Gordon in the face by saying, you fucked us up over 4 years, we're going to come in and fix it. I think they're trying to find a nice corporate way of putting the right people into the right positions so that they take over. But for the fans at the moment, that's not good enough. They need to be much clearer and much more upfront to say, yeah, we're backing David Gray, but what we're also doing is changing in the background. So as head coach, not manager, as head coach who is provided with a squad, we are putting the best in behind them, so we will get this sorted. Sorry, rant over.
No, I think it's spot on. The thing about the AI generated statement, I can't remember if it was on Hibsnet or on Twitter. Somebody had actually kind of asked ChatGPT to produce one, and it was almost word for word. It blew my mind that we're working hard, but we're going to work hard now to fix it. And you're like, surely fuck, everybody's working hard already. Like that's like something that just doesn't need to be said.
And so the team that went down to 10 men the week before against Dundee United and who were battling to get the winner with series of corners up to the 112th minute, whimpered on Saturday. And I think it's just pressure. I think if anybody's dealt with people at work who are under too much pressure, who try too hard, who tighten up, who tension up, and particularly in sport, if O'Hara miscontrols a ball, that he'll miscontrol one time in 25.
Yeah.
And he'll never miscontrol in training. That's been too tight, too tense, and over-focused. He'd headed the ball out the pitch 5 minutes earlier. That everybody thought he was going to control. That's tension, that's stress, that's anxiety. The coaches have to see that. That's why he's been pulled. But the pressure was there on Saturday.
And it's not going to go away anytime soon. Tracy, you got your hand up, and then I'll come to Jeff after you.
Yeah, no, it was just some of the points that John was bringing up, and it's true. Who's leaking stuff? Like, why are we finding out all this information before things are happening? Like, people were talking on Twitter tonight. I'm not going to mention it, but people were talking on Twitter tonight before anything came out. And everyone was going, "What's going on?" We had the stuff getting leaked to the papers about what Bill Foley wasn't happy about, because Bill Foley didn't actually say it himself. And then you've got this kind of stuff saying that Dave Gray's going to get sacked. So for me, it sounds like, and these are the people that don't get held accountable. For me, it sounds like it's people at the top of the tree that are leaking stuff like this, because they are probably the only people that actually know about it. And for me, that's just not good enough.
I mean, there was definitely like a lot of information flying about on like even for late Sunday night, but for Monday, and we were kind of joking about it at the start of extra time on Monday, because we obviously we have a lot of folk who share stuff with us, and it's always shared in good faith. But the amount of stuff that we had that was exactly the same, give or take, generally there's enough there to say, well, it's not coming from the one person either. This is people repeating what they believe is good information because of where it's come from, and a lot of it was reportedly coming from within the club. Jeff,
what I was going to say is that if we went back 6 months and had this, we'd be talking about a CEO who couldn't shut his mouth in hospitality. Now, I'm not saying that Ben has been the source of it here, but there's a problem in a culture that develops. That you fight your own corner by letting people know what you think. Whether someone's guessed, whether it's that idea walking down the corridor, someone said, I don't think it's going to be a good day for David Gray today, and that's the one that's grown arms and legs because the wrong person has said it and been overheard in a corridor.
Yeah.
That's the problem with it's a professionally run football club. Point was made, I think it was on Hibsnet earlier. Ian Gordon and Bill Foley are in America. Any meetings that are being held aren't getting held at 10 o'clock in the morning because they ain't getting up at 3 a.m. So there's lots of things there where there's clearly speculation rife within the club. There's people who are not keeping the professional mouth shut, and it tells you that they're not pulling in the one direction. But that's the hope, is that the changes that we're starting to see dribble through are the result of the review that was promised, and it might even be insights from Malky Mackay. We can't discount that he's gone in July and said that person's not doing their job, that person's not doing their job. We need to do better here.
It was one of the things in the statement was about all departments are under pressure to deliver, and you know the bloody well should be. Right, Jeff.
Can I just say that whoever's providing the tea and coffee, right, shouldn't feel under any pressure at all. They're doing a great job. You know what I mean? Right? And it's not the idea that every department at the football club should be under pressure. Just do your job as well as you can. Don't feel as if you're getting hammered by your bosses.
You're saying that, John, but they run out of milk in the West Stand Upper for the cups of tea, and I saw. So
I
somebody
thought it was
not
cream
happy
in the
'cause-
West Stand Upper.
Nah.
Pinky's out.
That's for the coffees, but for the wee milkers, there was somebody getting a refund for a cup of tea because there was no milk for it. And that was at half time as well. So already on the back end, you know, the end of that shambles performance, at least he could get us a decent cup of tea. Jeff, thank you for waiting patiently there. And you come. Where do you want to start?
Just on the coffee, if you buy the coffee in the East Stand, don't. I don't know what they do with the water. It just tastes. It doesn't taste like coffee. I don't know what they've done with it.
You've not been buying Bovril by accident, Jeff, have you?
No, I used to get Bovril back in the day. Yeah. Anyway, no, I'll talk about the statement a wee bit. The statement said nothing, which has already been said on here. To me, it read like, we're just waiting for an excuse to sack David, and we'll wait until he loses against Dundee, Aberdeen, whatever, and then he's gone. A bit like Monty. It's almost. I was trying to find the statement that when Monty got the support after the Motherwell game, which lasted till he got beat by Aberdeen, and that was what we were waiting for, just to get rid of him.
This two games later, was it?
Well, he after the Motherwell game, they beat St Johnstone. Did they get beat by Ross County, and then get beat by Aberdeen? I can't remember the circumstances.
Three games.
Yeah, then Motherwell and Livingston. David Gray was in charge. So the statement to me, just like, we've got to put a statement out because there's these rumours flying around. It probably looks bad if we sack him at the moment, but he's definitely in the firing line unless we get miraculous results in the next 3 games. I hope I'm wrong because I want Davey to succeed. You know, I've got my on a personal, selfish basis, I've got a day with him through some charity event, which isn't going to mean much if he's no longer Hibs manager. But there you go. That's the selfish bit. So that statement to me was just shocking, absolutely shocking. They had to put something out because I was in the Albion after the game on Saturday, and the mood music was "He's gone." You know, that was what, you know, from various sources, and I was very surprised when that statement came out saying he was still with us, which I'm really glad about. But the club just looks like a sieve at the moment. As everyone said, that's not a good environment to work in. Whatever your job, you want to be supported. So Dave's kind of probably thought he was going to get the sack. Then he said, "Oh, I've got a reprieve here." But he's thinking, look what happened to Monty. I've got a few games. The players will know that as well. Hopefully they turn up for him. But after Saturday, I've always thought the performance didn't always match the result this season. We put some good performances in. Yeah. Down with individuals. Saturday was the first time since the second half against St Mirren, the first time around, and the Celtic game, or the first Celtic game, where performance and results have matched each other. You know, that was shocking, absolutely shocking, really disappointing.
Do you think there's much chance of Dave turning it around? So two-part question. One is Colin asked me at the end of the extra time on Monday about is 12 games enough? It's 12 league games. We've obviously got a few, a handful of League Cup games against lower level opposition in there as well. But 12 league games, is that enough to judge any manager? And if we're saying that is, how long is the next guy getting if he doesn't hit the ground running?
I would just let Dave carry on, at least for the January transfer window. Get some people in, get a goalkeeper in. You know, goalkeepers get managers sacked and clubs relegated. And I want Bursick to come good, but I've seen nothing, absolutely nothing that convinces me that he's going to be the keeper that keeps us or helps us get up the table. So he's been unfortunate. Whoever decision was to sign the keepers, or is it Malky or is it they were already identified? I'm not sure. Somebody might help us here. So that's a clear black mark against the recruitment team. Dave's stuck with it. He can't change a keeper now unless somebody's a free agent. So he's going to have to wait till January and get the Bournemouth guy in. So I would say, I personally would give him till January and beyond. And, you know, if we're hopelessly out of reach of everybody by January, it might be a different scenario. But again, is it totally his fault? Some will point to the way St Mirren were coached on Saturday. But if that goal had gone in on in extra in added on time and it ended up 2-2, people have been pointing the finger at Steve Robinson, going, "What were you doing sitting back against a shit Hibs team?"
Yeah,
that game was there for the taking. You know,
so
I mean,
those fine margins, Jeff, isn't it? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's the phrase that you're not allowed to say when you talk about Hibs and fine margins.
Fine margins, I know. I know. It's really Levitt. I think you've one of the podcasts. It might have been you. Might have been down the slope mentioned about. Yeah, we had a better. Well, the players that came on made a different second half, but St Mirren were just sitting back. You know, they were camped in, pick us up on the break. Nearly got a third. Should have had a third goal when we lost it at the corner, and Gogic did what Gogic does, puts it over the bar. Yeah, I'd love to see Levitt. He was a one player I was really excited about a signing for a long time. I think you've said the same thing.
Yeah, I thought he was brilliant.
Such a disappointment. I love him to stick him in the team, come good. I know there's a lot of people out there who have totally written him off. I've not totally written him off, but he's got to do something. And Saturday, if somebody had picked a midfield before the game, I think we would all have picked the same midfield virtually. Those three, Taekwondo, Joe, Taekwondo, sorry. Yeah, Taekwondo. And and I was happy with that midfield in every game. I thought, at least we won't get overrun in midfield with those three. What happened? Fucking bossed the midfield. O'Hara and whoever else was in there with him. Just ran them off the park. And Kwon, my mate, who I won't mention, he hasn't rated him since he joined us. He said, nah, straight away. And I said, well, no, he's made a difference. He's got legs. He gets his foot in. Saturday, I had to agree with him when I met him in the bar afterwards. I hate agreeing with him, but there you go.
Has to happen sometimes, eh? Right, I'm going to bring in Ian. You've got your hand up, and Charlie, I see you waiting with your hand up, and Stephen as well, and Joe. I've not forgotten about you. We'll get to you soon as well. Ian, on you go.
Yeah, if you could, sorry, as usual with John, I always feel out my depth with John. In this case, it's because I have no idea who Michael Nelson is, so maybe we could explain that later on.
Centre half when we got relegated.
Oh, right, okay. I was in America at the time. All right, that makes sense.
What were you doing in America, Ian?
I lived there for 11 years. So if you can tell Colin that some of us actually prepare for these calls, so I was preparing my notes, which are now in front of me. So David Gray is obviously an inexperienced head coach, and we've seen him making coaching mistakes, which are down to that inexperience. So selection, he continues to play players who've not performed. So in other words, Dwight Gale should be up front from the start on Saturday. His substitution, his timing, particularly and prior to Saturday, his timing and lack of impact of his substitutions, they're all down to his mistakes. Man management, backing Boyle as vice captain, which I mentioned a few weeks ago, as a means of motivating him, and then standing by Ellie, who's not performing. And obviously his match day motivation, whatever he's doing, is failing. But that's part of coaching, is a match day motivation. But we knew we were appointing an inexperienced head coach when we appointed Dave, just like we did with Sean Maloney. So I said on May the 14th, when he was appointed, and I've said a number of times since that when Malky was appointed, I was sorely disappointed with the lack of ambition that we had in appointing Malky. And with the Black Knights' involvement, I'd expected us to move up a tier, effectively, not to go for the Ross County manager who'd been fired. And what we are seeing now is a result of appointment of Malky. So we've no communicated strategy or targets. Our recruitment strategy is not in place. We're relying on loan players, with all our young players loaned out. And but also the constant changing of head coach over the past few years has meant that we've released players who are now performing well for other clubs against us. Glenn Middleton, Matt Kennedy, Simon Murray, Alex Gogic, Paul McGinn, and Ross Laidlaw. Loads of these players are turning up playing against us and are highly motivated. But there's no point in changing the head coach without changing Malky. So we can't possibly do that. Malky's the problem. But the good points to come out of Saturday's game, it makes the selection decisions easier, for instance, to leave out Bursick, to leave out Ellie, who's ineffective. Bursick because he makes mistakes. Ellie completely ineffective. Boyle is failing in every aspect of his performance, every aspect of his game. Kwon, who I was excited about, but he's hiding, he's negative, and completely ineffective. And it also makes it clear from Saturday that Lewis Miller is not the problem. And Rocky came on like gangbusters, like David said earlier. Rocky came on like gangbusters, and Dylan Levitt turned us into an attacking team instantly. And I can't believe we actually had 2 shots on target, including it must have been both the penalties, I take it.
Yeah, it was.
So I went for a few pints with one of my Hibs mates after the game in Curry, and a St Mirren supporter. And this St Mirren supporter is an experienced coach, referee, and long-term supporter. And he said it was really simple. He said, our guys were pressed right from the start. They came on at 100 miles an hour. And as a result, St Mirren were knackered in the second half, in his view. And he never misses a St Mirren game. So that's why we came to the game. That's why they, as you said, just hung off us and gave us the ball. But they were knackered because they pressed us so much from the start. So I'm looking for David Gray now to make his own decisions and to take advice from outside his very inexperienced coaching group, because some of the antics I see from the coaches on the sidelines when David should be the one who's doing anything. And I think their experienced coaches are part of the substitution problem. They're fanny about for ages, discussing things and pointing at things before finally the substitute.
Any more? Okay. I want to just ask you about the Malky thing, right? So Malky's job, Ian, right? The sporting director. What do you say the sporting director is responsible for? Like, what's their remit?
It's amazing because I specifically looked it up, and it says Malky's appointment is responsible for all aspects of the football department. Okay, so therefore it's his responsibility. He is the cause of the problem. He appointed David Gray, knowing he was an experienced coach. I went back and specifically looked for that date of the appointment, Matty, about 20 minutes ago. And that's exactly what the press release says. All aspects of the football department. So Malky is down and he's responsible. The head coach is responsible for the selection, performance, the tactics. And obviously that's not going well, but that's not going well because he's inexperienced. But the stupidity above him, and it's obvious that I think it's obvious that Malky doesn't know what he's doing. So,
what would you have expected Malky to have impacted since the start of June? You know, so he's come in. He hired David Gray within 2 days, I think it was. Like you have the dates there, but it was definitely within a week. I think Malky was announced, and then Dave was announced right in the back here. So. Malky's come in. There was a previous director of football in place at the same time as Malky joined. What do you think Malky should have done to impact the first team that he hasn't?
What do we do as managers? Probably a lot of us on this call are highly experienced managers. So for 35 years, I was a manager of people. And one of the things you do is you sometimes take a risk with people and you put them into a role, right? You make sure you support them all the time, but you also get in place a mentor. You get in place a mentor who they can turn to. You make sure that you make it clear that you've got their back at all times. You go and have informal chats. You make sure your door's open at any time. You didn't interfere, but you keep an eye on them very closely what they're doing. You make sure they've got a mentor. So all of us are experienced people, and as a people manager, that's what I'd be constantly doing. Yeah, and I would help David Gray when he's making decisions about things like Martin Boyle. So the decision to appoint Boyle as vice captain was nuts. And it's the sort of mistake I made when I was 22 that I wouldn't make these days, you know.
Charlie, you get your hand up.
Aye. I agree with a lot of what's been said so far. I was going to pick up on the point about how long do we give David Gray. And I'm of the opinion, and I've been of the opinion every time except last week when I've been on this phone and that I don't know when we're next winning a game. And I know a few people have said that when they've been on here as well. And I wonder if the statements put them between a rock and a hard place, because we've only beat St Johnstone this season and we're 12 games in. So that's virtually a third of the season gone and we're rock bottom in the league. Obviously, game in hand, which is against Aberdeen. No, give me we're going to win that one. So there's us 13 games played the same as everyone else and we're probably going to be rock bottom in the league. How long do you realistically give a manager who so far in the league has got a win percentage of 8%, which is probably up there with the worst win percentages in world football? I think we either need to back him right until the end of the season, regardless of form, or we need to wait until we've played everyone a second time, and if we're still where we are, bin him. I think legend sentimentality needs to go out the window for this one. gave us all the best day of our lives supporting Hibs, but I think if the form does not improve in the next 5-10 games, I would be seriously considering getting rid of him.
Quite agree.
Okay, Stephen, in you come.
Thanks, folks. Apologies for dropping off earlier. I'll start off by saying I didn't actually catch the game either in person or on TV on Saturday, so I'm going
Lucky
off
bastard.
of. Oh, you say that I was dragged shopping up to Livingston Centre with the missus. So I'll start off by saying I've only seen the highlights, heard the interviews in the press, and the Hibs Twitter, and all I can really say is I didn't miss anything. The first words I heard out of David Gray's mouth after the game was I apologise for the first half. And for me, as an outsider looking in, that's a manager who is sadly out of his depth. The Rambo Boys are an absolute brilliant podcast, I think 2 days ago, about an hour and a half long, and they went into a proper deep dive assessment of things. And for me, it's an underperforming squad. It's a poor quality squad that right now is very clearly being poorly coached and poorly managed. And that's not just from Davey, that's from Eddie, that's from Liam Craig, and that's from Craig Sampson. Case in point, the first goal, it happens down our right, which at that point in the pitch is actually outside of the Hibs dugout. Martin Boyle has a wee glance over, doesn't see the guy making the run. Lewis Miller's tucked in. You know, who is there anybody in the bench that's telling Martin, get back into position? It's just embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. As for the second goal, yeah, O'Hara's made a terrible first touch. For some reason, his second touch, he doesn't just slide and knock it out. He tries to, I think, control it, which is bad enough. But the goalkeeper, the second goal is just shambolic. In fact, for both goals as well, if you watch them back, Ekpiteta is actually between a rock and a hard place. He's doing his job with his man. I think he actually sees Cohen lose his man for the first goal, and he's stuck between whether or not he sticks with his own man, which is doing his job, or if he goes. And then same with the second one, you could argue he should come out and block down the shot. But he's doing his own job. He's marking his own man, so he's having to bail out his teammates or potentially bail out his teammates. I think the first half performance just shows it's players that they've got no confidence, no will or fight to actually dig in. And I think you can see that with the performance. And sadly for me, David said after the game that he told the players a bigger performance was needed. And if that's what he's getting from him from the first half, for me, his time is very, very slow running out. And Charlie's absolutely spot on. Take the sentimentality point out of it, we would be screaming behind that West Stand after Saturday's performance if it wasn't David Gray, if it was anybody else. So for me, I'm kind of thinking that statement has echoes of Monty in May when they came out and said that basically you're on watch for the next 5 games after the split, and he was gone by the end of game 3 of the split. I think this statement's been shrewdly released ahead of 3 games that realistically I do not see us winning any of, and that gives them the reason to actually get rid of him. Personally speaking, 12 games in, having not even played Aberdeen yet, if we stick with David Gray, I think we're absolute certs to go down, and that's based on everything I've seen and read from Saturday onwards. I just don't see him having the required skills and quality as a manager, albeit a very inexperienced manager that's been dealt with an absolutely shit hand from a circus above him. But I just don't see him turning it in my. I just don't think he's good enough. Sadly, I don't think the players are good enough. I don't think he's got the required skill set to get the best out of them.
Fair enough. I'm going to just conscious of time. There's David Grierson on the line still to get to, and Joe. So a couple of folk with their hands up. I'll go through the hands. Joe, come to you, then I'll come to David Grierson after that, and then we'll see how we're doing for time. Dave Thompson, on you go.
I think, as it was said earlier, there a lot of the games we've been not too bad in, and we've been unlucky. And but when you're not a good team, sometimes you make your own luck. And I think we're anchored at the bottom, the fear's really setting now. And like Miller, he's a young boy. I think it's going to overcome the team. And it's very hard to see how they're going to come back for this. But one thing I wanted to say is I was in the Edinburgh suite at the weekend there, and I noticed how quiet it was after the game. And I was told Tornadoes was shut at the weekend. They never sold any tickets in Tornadoes, and the Albion bar was empty. So I think this is maybe going to impact the commercial side as well as the football side. The supporters are obviously feeling it, but I think we're seeing it from the top to the bottom of the club, and I just want to put it there. I don't think we can do anything with David Gray. I think we've got to give him at the end of the season. Whatever happens, I would stick with him, because if we get a wee bounce for another manager and it's just repeat, well, we'll just go into next year like this. We've got to use this poor form as a catalyst for proper change within our club. And I wouldn't be opposed to Eddie May being moved back to HTC as an experiment. He's not helping the manager one little bit, and get a kind of season campaigner in there. Somebody that's got a bit of dig, a Yogi type character. I'm not saying Yogi, but somebody that can really assist David Gray and put a bit of belief in the players and kind of get them actually going out, not scared. But the next few games, I think it's going to get worse, boys. And I just don't know what your thoughts about keeping Dave in and maybe messing with the other two. See if we can put somebody else in to try and help with this situation.
It's an interesting point. I said for the start, I thought we needed a more experienced backroom team around Dave, and more experience, more quality. Although I always have made the point, I don't know how good coaches are, Liam Gray, Craig, and Eddie May and Samson are. Like they might be brilliant coaches, and maybe got the wrong end of the stick with it. But I felt that was a mistake for the club, no putting in really experienced, high quality coaches to support Dave with it. Just on the point about the Albion bar and Tornadoes, Jeff, you mentioned you were in the Albion bar. Was it really quiet, and did you notice if the Tornadoes was open?
I only went to the Albion after the game. Somebody got us a wristband, so after the game it was obviously subdued, and the rumours were flying around about Davy, obviously. So I can't comment about. I've only ever been there twice during games, so I don't know what it's normally like. Both were. One was St Johnstone, I think, and one was the game on Saturday. So I can't really comment, Matty. Sorry.
Fair dues. That's fine. I thought I would check. Joe, thank you for waiting patiently. Where do you want to start?
How long have you got? No, seriously. I think the root cause goes right back to before the season started with the appointment of David Gray. The fact that we're 1 win out of 12 games or whatever it is. David Gray, if you look at all the recruits, with the exception of Kieran Bowie, who unfortunately has been injured, and arguably Nicky Cadden, the rest are all just, either over the hill, oil in the light, or just not up to the English second, third division or whatever they come from. So none of this should be a surprise. But that said, we're in the position we're in. I agree with 3 of the last 4 speakers who've all said that we should really, sentiment aside, get rid of David Gray, because he's a lost soul. He's a completely lost soul. Interestingly, the 3 substitutes he brought on Saturday made a huge impact. I mean, Matty, I've been arguing for Levitt to come on for a few weeks now, but as a number 10, I would see him. But anyway, we've got to do something drastic, because the next 7 games, we've got 2 games at home against Aberdeen and Ross County, another 5 are away. And by then we're at Christmas and we're out of the box. Something has to happen now. I don't know what that stupid statement was, at least on Monday, was all about, because they're obviously in a flound. They don't know what they're doing, and they don't know what to do. So they just put out that statement, well, if we sack David Gray, what are we going to do? It needs management. It needs decisions. And sadly, we're not seeing any of that from Easter Road. They're lost.
The concern for me with the statement and the rumours that were going around was that one of the aspects, and I'm only going on hearsay here, so just I'll caveat this is with I've not fact checked. I have no way of validating any of this, but I heard it from a few different sources that effectively the stay of execution came because we had no viable alternative to put in place on an interim basis. Had made the decision to sack.
And who would want to take on that poison chalice, Matty?
Well, I actually think with the right changes behind the scenes, I think it's an appealing job. Like I think there's, if you come in and you've got a January window where you're going to be back, they're bringing in Garvin Stewart, I think, who's the head of data analysis or something like that at Bournemouth. It's coming up to help with our recruitment. And there's obviously talk about Black Knights getting more involved. So I think that the job itself would be appealing if the right changes are made. I think right now, if you went out to any sort of respectable manager, they'd tell you where to go. Like if we were trying to tap up Derek McInnes or something like this, they'd laugh you out of the room. In the nick the Hibs are in the now. But with the right changes behind the scenes and the right infrastructure in place, I think we're set up for success. Like everything apart from that first 11 and the coaching team.
I think you'll see the changes happening, and I think the Black Knights will largely take over. Come January, but by then it could be too late. That's my worry.
Yeah.
It could be so far behind the game.
Well, I think the saving grace is there's other shit teams in the league.
Yeah,
whereas we're not out of touch with anybody yet. So
yeah, St Johnstone and Ross County have still got to be favourites to go down. I would have said. That was a hopeful Hibs supporter.
You're having a laugh. John, you get your hand up. I'll bring you in and I'll get Stephen after you.
So, I mean, I want Gray to stay on, but I think I'm in a minority. I think Stephen, Charlie, and Joe, in that respectful way that people are putting forward to say David Gray is out of his depth. We think the people above him appointed him to the job at the wrong time, that he's an inexperienced manager who should have been brought into a team that was doing well and was able to learn on the job. He has no experience of doing a complete rebuild. Again, you go back to Ferguson being the ace man on that. And it's very easy to put forward an argument to say, you were discussing the other night, that all the things that were right for bringing in David in the summer, and I want him to stay, but I can absolutely hear and understand and accept what's coming forward from what I think will be the majority of the support. And folk I've heard chatting on trains, going to and from the games, in the games, or walking in the streets. I left at 80 minutes. I thought I'd left it full time when I got out the back of the stand. You know what I mean? I've got a son who's not been to any of the last 3 games. He has utterly switched off because of the board. So I think that the club underestimate the feelings that sort of Charlie, Stephen and Joe are putting forward at their peril, because it's not David Gray that people are angry at. Is that fair, guys? I didn't want to misrepresent.
Totally agree.
Stephen.
John, you're spot on. I don't want him to go. I don't want him to fail. But I'm thinking the longer term and head ruling over heart. I just quite simply just don't think he's shown enough, or that he's good enough. One thing I was going to say, Matty, is you had said that they didn't get rid of him because there's no alternative option. Does that suggest that it's still going to be Malky that's the head of the potential recruitment of a new manager, or basically going down the same route as the summer where the Black Knights weren't offered a space at the table to discuss it? I wonder if that's our existing board still taking matters into their own hands. I just wanted to raise that surely to God they're going to recruit the knowledge and insight of the Black Knights, hopefully, if they do obviously decide to go on a different route.
I think the way that it will be, and this is just my observation for what's going on. So although Black Knights had put forward a different sporting director as their preference, once Malky was appointed, they got, as you do, like when you're in a management team, once the decision's made, you have to get behind it. And they're not looking to replace him. They effectively will see Malky as being the guy that's the conduit between what's happening locally at Easter Road at HTC and then that relationship with Bournemouth and the Black Knights. So he'll still be in place, but I think he'll very much be involved in a wider discussion with Black Knights. So I don't think Malky, and again, this is just my take on it, I don't think Malky will be the one who's picking the head coach. He might be the one that ultimately puts his name to the press release when it comes out. But I think that recruitment process will be taken largely out of his hands, but with him being involved in it. That's my understanding of it, and I might be wide of the mark with it, but that's how I see it going. I would be concerned if our decision makers that have made the decisions up to now were going to make that sort of decision. I think we would be as well just giving up now if that was the case. Ian?
If the Black Knights come in, I think Malky would be the first to go. It was wrong to appoint Malky. It was also wrong to appoint David Gray. We should have brought in Ian Murray, which is what I said at the time. I want David to stay. I want David to stay because now that we've got him, we must avoid getting rid of another head coach. It's just lunacy. David will be one day a very good head coach. He is definitely learning just now. We have to give him time to do that. Now that we've made the appointment, we can't get rid of him. But if the Black Knights come in and take responsibility for the football department, Malky has to go, right? There's no way he should stay on. And by the way, I met Joe at the Hibs Club. We had a nice pint, and I hope to do that again. And I think John should stay on. I think John should definitely stay on to the end of the matches, at the very least. And applaud the players off, John.
I'll see you before the Aberdeen game.
First match in a season and a half where I've left early. I think the 4-0 down to Celtic on a Wednesday night was the last time I left early.
You mentioned, Ian, about Malky should never have been hired, and I think this is one of the things that I hope to see going forward for the Black Knight is an end to this sort of nepotism.
Nepotism. I knew you were going to say nepotism.
That's it. Just folk getting an easy route into a job at Hibs, which is just appalling, really. I mean, we're supposed to be an elite football club playing at the top of the Scottish game, and you've got folk getting jobs because of who they know. No proper recruitment process getting put in place, and these are key jobs that we're talking about as well. And it's not so much the fact that they might not be able to do the job; it's the fact that you don't know if there's somebody better out there that could have done it instead.
Can I just say one last thing?
Of course, you can. You made this last word, Ian, because we're out of time, so you can have the last say.
Yeah, I said it before that Malky Mackay looks far too much like Ronald Villiers. Okay, that's the problem. He looks far too much like Ronald Villiers, and that is the concern I have.
It's a valid concern at that. Right, we are out of time. I'm sure we could have gone on for longer. Luckily, we've not got a game to preview and guess the score wrong for this weekend, so there's a wee saving grace. We will be back on
2-0 to the other team.
Score prediction. Come on.
2-0 to the other team.
2-0 at another team. We can all predict this time. 2-0, right. We'll be back on Sunday. Obviously, no preview show tomorrow because there's no game to preview. Colin and I will be back on Sunday with Long Bangers, and we're hoping to have a special extra time out with a wee guest on there on Monday. And then again, our phone in will be back on Thursday. And hopefully, between now and then, Hibs didn't do anything fucking mental, and we can all just be calm for 7 days, please, Hibs, and we can kind of pick up and look forward to the Dundee game at that point. Folks, thanks very much for coming on. Thanks for tuning in on YouTube. Sorry if we never got to your comments.